Hey, gang, it's another Monday, and oh my God, today is January the 24th. We have one more Monday in this lovely month of 2022. It is flying past real quickly. So, thank you again. Welcome everybody who's coming out to the show. Those who are going to join us on the hashtag replay. We do want to know where you're tuning in from. Drop it in the comments. Even tell us how your weekend is. You know what I'm saying? We're going to be talking about a few things today. But I know I got my lovely co-host here, Tracy, with me today, and we've always been giving you guys Mary J. Blige, the 411, right? On authentic leadership, saying that this is. But we thought today that how about we discuss some of those dark side of yeah, they usually try to do my Darth Vader voice with that, right? The dark side of authentic leadership. So we just want to talk about some of that. We're failing your way to authentic leadership. Have you ever heard that put together like that? No, that's why we do what we do, right? We come up with stuff and we just create stuff, and you guys just join us along. But we thank you. What's up, Trace? How are you feeling today?
Well, I had my COVID booster about an hour ago.
Okay,
So
all right.
right now I'm feeling fine. We'll see
Okay,
how we go.
well,
But it's
but this,
also so nice still here. The weather is so nice, so we can actually go
uh,
outside.
don't talk
So as
about
long as it's sunny and nice in January in Calgary, I feel like we're winning.
that's that Canada. That's that old Canada. Yeah, but it is not that great in New Jersey today. I think it got up to like about 27 degrees. So that's a little bit what it's supposed to be around
Warmer
this
here.
time.
See
Huh?
what the Celsius is here. Well, it's 1 Celsius, which is what in Fahrenheit? 32-ish, 34.
34ish. Okay. Yeah, it's about what it's supposed to be here, but we haven't had weather like it really supposed to be, so you kind of get like spoiled, that kind of thing.
Mm.
So I actually had to put a coat on when I went out early, and I was like, "What is this? It should be warmer." And then I just got smacked by reality. It's January. What do you expect? At least it's not snowing. I'm not shoveling myself out of a blizzard. But
It was
enough of that.
snowing today. It did snow here.
Well, it seems like Canada always snowing there. You guys probably get snow in the summer. I don't understand, right?
Actually, fun fact, one year I went to Japan in August, which Japan, lovely country. August, hot. Probably
Oh wow.
not the number one month I would encourage people to go. Anyway, so went to August, and August here also the nicest month of the year generally. August, September. I came back, snow on the ground.
Yeah,
And
it's
I was
getting
like, what happened here?
it's getting unpredictable. The weatherman used to be the only one on the news that you could kind of like depend on. Remember, if they said it was going to rain, you kind of like took your umbrella. They was kind of right like 9 out of 10 times. But oh man, it's not. I got relatives that live down in Charlotte, and they told me there's an ice storm over the weekend. So that's where we are. North Carolina is getting ice storms, and roads are shut up. But it is what it is, right?
But we're
So,
not here to talk about the
but we're not
weather.
here to talk about weather. You guys talk about weather on your own time. You're not talk about weather.
Ligia is in Costa Rica, and I don't want to know what the weather is there.
Yes.
Beautiful and sunny.
Yes. It's probably beautiful and sunny. She probably sitting somewhere on the beach. Thank you. Good afternoon. Greetings from Costa Rica. Thank you, Lucia. I appreciate that. All right. We're talking about this dark. I just want to put it up there so we can put it at the dark side. The dark side of authenticity. I think I got to work on that Darth Vader voice, but don't worry, we get it. When we
I
think
was going to
about,
say, I'm the worst at voices, so I cannot help you.
I got to
But
do
we
some
wanted
work.
to talk. Here's what, you guys. After we were debriefing after our last episode, and we're like, wow, we use a lot of examples here of authentic leadership, and that might make it seem like we are so good at authentic leadership, and we are not always good at being authentic leaders, nor have we always been good at being authentic leaders, right? Like there are times in our past where we didn't know what that looked like either. And so what we wanted to talk about today was what it looks like to fail forward, fail towards authentic leadership with the goal or the intention. Let's use intention instead of goal, because I feel like when we say goal, there's like a hard deadline and things like that. But when our intention is to be authentic, we look at situations a certain way. And if our intentions are different, then it's hard to look at it with the intention of leading authentically, right? You might look like, I'll use an example from my past because I'm not perfect and we can use examples that don't paint us in the best light. I once had a project where I had to launch a new product. So I was in marketing in 8 days.
Wow.
I will tell you, authenticity came into play 0 times in those 8 days because there were so many things I had to do in 8 days that I didn't even, quite honestly, have time to think beyond the 8 days or how this was going to contribute to my authentic leadership. I was in the mode of get it done and get it done now. And so examples like that, we want to have a conversation around that today, because just because you spent 8 days not being an authentic leader, and that's totally what I did, doesn't mean that you can't run another project from an authentic leadership perspective, can't learn something from that scenario, and how when we have an intention and then we don't meet our intention, how we can look at those things and say, okay, how could I do it differently next time? So if my intention is to be an authentic leader, what might I do differently the next time that happens? And if you're still employed, especially if you're still employed by the same person who did that to you before, the likelihood of that scenario coming up again is high. So how might I do that differently next time? And that's what I really want to break down. I was having a chat conversation with Scott Hardiman, who is on my LinkedIn live show on Friday, about failure earlier today. And just about when we think back and we think about how we learn to ride a bike, or how we learn to spell, or how we learn to do math, or most of the things that we learn how to do as kids, we don't get it right the first time. And that's a failure, right? When we don't get it right, that means we failed at something. And it might not have been like I failed my entire test, or I failed an entire grade, or I failed at a dance competition or whatever, but it might just be like you didn't get it right. And very rarely in our lives, even for me, and I was like an A+ student, most of the time I did not get 100%. I would get very high, 96 or whatever, but almost always you would get something wrong. And then somehow we become adults and we start working and we think we're never going to get anything wrong again. Well, that's how you learn things. And that's how
Who
you
came
learn.
up with that?
Right. And it's just that we need to be reminded that that is how you learn, right? If there is no failure, you're actually not learning anything. You're just staying within your box of things you already know. And so if you're experiencing failure, that's because you're doing something new. You're learning something new about you or about a subject or something. And as long as that thing is in alignment with the direction you're going, then you're going to have failure. Hence, if your direction is authentic leadership, at some point, you're going to have an authentic leadership fail. Yeah. So for those of you joining us live today, I would love to hear, we're going to share some of ours. We're going to share some other ways to look at this so we can make it feel a little bit easier. But we would love to hear your authentic leadership fails, or perhaps you don't have any yet because you haven't been doing things that are in alignment with being an authentic leader. And that's okay, right? Like a lot of you might be in learning mode right now, right? Like we learn and then we take a test. That's what school teaches us anyway. And then we prove how much we learned, right? In life, it doesn't really work that way. But unless you show up to test out the skills, you can't tell whether or not you learned anything new. So we have to test it out. And sometimes it's going to fail. So, Carl, Shawn, what else you got to say about the dark side of authentic leadership?
The dark side. It's a lot of myths that go on, but a few myths that are pretty much persuasive and pretty much about the notion of leaders need to be authentic, right? That is really our narrative, our understanding, kind of like our guideline to where you're not really being a leader unless you're being authentic. And a lot of times we look at this as being a particular way, right? And then sometimes we even just get it twisted because we have maybe coaches and leaders and managers or what have you. They give you these suggestions about being authentic. Is just truly just be yourself. Don't worry about what people think. If you think you great, you are great. And sometimes that's some really feel good advice. That's some things that make you feel good about you and what you're doing. And it's obviously comforting. It's nice to be celebrated. You know what I mean, when you're in these positions and you do that. But a lot of times it's in stark contrast, and it's probably more sobering than not that when you look upon these authentic leaders, they're not really leading in the terms of authentic, because a lot of times there's some misunderstanding. And of course, I go to my favorite narrative, Webster's Dictionary. There's a misunderstanding into what the word authentic means, right? Because even when you say something like, I know when I was growing up, and we was growing up as younger ones, and different ones will say different things. We like, yo, keep it real. Now, to the narrative of whatever society you're in or whoever you're talking to, somebody says keep it real, right? I mean, politically, be authentic. But keeping it real can mean different things to different people, such as authentic leadership. Because you have some people that look at authentic leadership as a boisterous, monotone voice, and they're just being authentic in speech, right? And then you could have some that's thinking that they're being authentic because they know how to direct or guide people with authority, right? Does that make them authentic? Not at all. Not at all. Just because someone may be someone, and even in then, someone may be authentic, it does not mean that they should be relied upon or even trusted. So when you think of those things together, yes, you could be authentic, it could be just real, man. Because I had a guy was telling me, man, I love how you lead, man. You lead with the real. And I asked him, I was like, well, what is the real? Like, explain to me what is the real? He's like, no, because you just tell it like it is, man. Like you lead with the real. I was like, oh, okay, so that's your perception of what I'm saying. What if I'm saying that I'm leading you because this is what we're supposed to be doing? Not necessarily that it's the real, that's what we're supposed to be doing. No, man, it's just the way you say it, man. It's the way you say it. So a lot of times we have this misconception, and the dark side of being authentic is the visuals that we see with people who claim to be, or who even not. I don't think a lot of times people even claim. I think a lot of times people think that they are being authentic in the leadership roles that they're being in, or they look to be that way, and it's confusing to me. It's not measured by performance. It's not measured by. It's just that, are you being real? Tracy, are you real? What's the real with you?
Well, you guys make that decision on whether or not you think I'm being real. But I want to share this with you guys because I shared this with Tara earlier today.
Uh,
And if you guys saw my post, so I posted on Saturday about how we
hmm,
need to get rid of the narrative about being socially acceptable, right? Because,
uh,
and the reason is, this is what happened to me. So there's a gentleman that I follow who has like 150,000 followers. So
that's
I would consider him an influencer, right? I put him into the
he,
category of
he, he
influencer.
might he might say something here or there that people like.
Well, apparently he's a career whisperer to young
Oh wow.
employees, and this is what scares me even more. And so he wrote this post about how most of you guys might think that I'm authentic, in quotes, and raw, because that's the brand I'm trying to sell, right? I'm
Oh
not those
wow.
things. And then his whole story was like, this is what we do. We show the socially acceptable parts of ourselves to the world, and we keep all of our authenticity to ourselves. And I was like, I'm mad about that because, yes, maybe that's what we do today, but that it shouldn't be what we do. Like, is that what we're teaching the next generation to do? Because that just seems like a terrible plan. Anyway, and I stopped following him, and I had all of the
That
things to
was my,
say in my
yeah,
comments about
my
it.
next question. I was gonna say, are you the 151,100
I have
follower
one
here,
less follower after
one
that
less
post.
follower? But I
But
think that
anyway, that's the thing, right? Like there's so many misconceptions about what authentic even
yeah,
means. And even on this show, we talk so often about how authentic the way you show up being authentic is different than the way I show up being authentic, and Tanya and Gina and Charlene and Tara and Lygia and all you guys are going to show up different. That's the point. That's the point of authentic. So when we're looking at it from an authentic leadership perspective, there really is no one measurement that you can track yourself against. Whereas, like, let's say you have a KPI of making 125 sales calls in a week, right? I use that example all the time. You can tell someone if you made 125 sales calls or you didn't make 125 sales calls. And when you look at the concept of, did I show up as an authentic leader? Quite honestly, almost no one else can tell you that except you. Did I show up authentically in that moment? And what you really need to do, what you really need to do is figure out what authentic looks like for you. I know, right? It was so confusing to me, Charlene. Why would you even say that? Why would you tell people that you were telling them a lie on purpose? I don't understand.
But the funny thing is about that is that he had such a. I'm really looking at the purpose, and I think sometimes maybe the analytics, the analyzer in me to look at things for a perspective of the answer, right? So if you got this such of a premise going on, and it seems to be, as far as the followers is concerned, it's a working perspective. Like you've created a following based upon this narrative of what you posted. So why destroy the narrative? What was the purpose of unveiling that or revealing?
He runs a marketing agency as well, and
I guess it's important though. Hey, he shows some skills. Now I must say that. Now, if you want someone to market you, maybe you come with, as Charlene would always say, come with a strategy. When you have a strategy, if you give him a strategy based upon what he did, I think he might be successful in marketing you.
It's true. And this is actually really interesting because I had somebody who is like a dear friend of mine once tell me that my strategy was to be authentic. And I was like, I can see she is like a project manager, like very operations minded, right? And so I was like, I can see how you would think that, right? Because a lot of people do sell it as a strategy, but it's different when you look at the intention. And this is what I commented on the post, actually. If your intention is to build a brand around something, regardless, then you'll take actions that are aligned with that, right? So if your goal is to build a brand of authenticity, you'll do the things it takes to build a brand of authenticity. If your intention is to be authentic, those are two different things, right? And one of the things I always say about authenticity is it's not about shoving in other people's faces your opinions or your experience all the time. It's about you having an experience and you deciding how you want to use that. Do you want to use it as a teaching moment? Do you want to keep it to yourself? Do you want to, whatever, what feels right for you is authentic. And it's not a strategy so that I can have a stronger brand in the market. It's so that I feel like I'm not carrying a fakeness around with me. And this is why it's important for leaders to explore what is authentic for me. Because even if you were saying, like, you might have had a boss, right? I've had a great boss. I thought he was very authentic. He said what he needed to say, but not more than what he needed to say. And we had a good relationship based on like human connection. And I don't know everything about him, right? I knew where he lived and I knew his wife's name and I knew like all of those things. But the way he led me, I believed that he was authentic. But the way that he led is not the same way I lead because we're not the same person. And so if I see him and I'm like, well, that's what an authentic leader looks like. So now I have to go be exactly like that. That's not the point of being authentic either. So this is why, and it's funny because Tanya said somewhere in there about the echo chamber.
Yeah, I was just about to go there because she made some great point, and Gina made a great point too. I want to go back to. We talk about quickly with her being, and this is kind of some of the things that we talk about in the essence of what's driving you. And I always get that. And before I go to Gina's part, I always get that. I always think that there should be a distinction there because a lot of times we let others' perception of us drive us. to a definition of what something should be, right? But I think if we flip that and we are that from the beginning, whatever else comes doesn't shake who we are. And she makes a great point that I hear a lot of times, even when talking to a lot of clients, especially with trying to be vulnerable. This is a lot of what I get, not necessarily being a new director, but she said being a new director, caring what people think was something extremely difficult for me. But it was a great achievement to overcome. This is where I go into my vulnerability state because the empowerment that came from that, right? A lot of people on my team have been there 5 to 10 years longer than me. So earning their respect took some time. It definitely took time, but the key thing that I took away from this, the key thing that I want to highlight on this is that an excuse was being laid, and this is not to to go in on you, Gina, but this is what I hear a lot about. I'm new to the position, so therefore I don't want to ruffle feathers. So I can't really be myself because the position or the individual who was in this position before, or or maybe it was a newly created position. This is not how the culture of this place allows me to be. So now it's difficult for me to really bring about my authentic leadership self because they will make it extremely difficult for me to be that. So I get asked this question a lot of times. How can I overcome that? And Gina, please share down in the comments how that being extremely difficult. When was the moment that you overcame it, and how did you overcome it? Because I'm sure our guests would love to know. So I like that. I like that. And I go to her
Yeah.
other one where she was saying, well, oh yeah, the same one. Yeah. She got told, Tanya says, I get told by people that I live in an echo chamber. Yes, I do too. I actually hear echoes when I'm talking because this type of conversation is not the norm. Well, welcome to authentic leadership.
We're trying to make it the norm. And it's actually funny because I met Tanya just a few days ago and I
Okay.
was like, I'm hearing things that I like. So
Yeah.
maybe you want to come and hang out with us.
Yes. Hey, come on in.
Yeah, but it's just like, and it's just to also address Gina's comment there too about caring about what people think, right? This is an interesting phenomenon in leadership because there's a difference to caring what people think and caring about people. Right. And so as a leader, we have an opportunity to come into a new leadership position and say, hey, I don't know all the people. I don't know all the dynamics here. I care enough about the people to figure out what the people think. And that's different than coming in and being like, I care what the people think about me. Right. And it's not that you don't care what the people think about you. But again, it goes back to Tanya had a comment there too about how Patrick Lencioni talks about motive. Right. I call it intentionality, but really the same thing. Like, why are you here? Are you here because you want to take care of the people? Are you here because it looks more successful on resume to have a leadership position?
Which is here just because they pay more money. Let's get down to the brass tacks of it, right? Some people take leadership positions because of the fact that it pays them more, right? I was been in the restaurant position. I was in restaurants for quite a few years at Chick-fil-A, and their pay was based upon how the hierarchy. So no matter how you get good, if your title didn't change, your pay didn't either. So a lot of people are in positions, those and want to be in those positions, not necessarily even seeking the power, but they may be seeking a pay raise. So it can be a lot of reasons of why you're in the leadership in the first place. But go ahead, I digress.
Well, and like this gets so complex, right? Because like I went to business school. They teach you that, right? They teach you that the more successful you are, the more money you make, or vice versa. But at least that those two things are connected, right?
In
And so
some
you're
form
like,
of fashion.
and some, like most organizations I've worked in, right? Like your goal is to move up the hierarchy.
Yes.
Right? Like there's very few, I would say, besides like I worked for a big retailer and their accounting department is almost exactly the same today as when I worked there 15 years ago. Like the accountants were just like really happy being accountants and doing their numbers, and God bless them because I don't want to do that job at all.
Accounting sucks.
But it's just like it's programmed into you. We were having this conversation in the Your Business Peeps networking event last week about how we're conditioned into so many of these things, and we don't even notice how conditioned we are. And so we start seeking out leadership opportunities because we think we should. We think that's what's going to make us feel like we're successful, that's going to get us to a place in our career that we feel like, hey, we've made it.
Because we tie that along with respect as well.
True.
We kind of breed that along. Okay, if you're the leader, you got to be respected, right? Or if you're leader, you got to have some kind of qualities or some kind of characteristics that you bring into the position that has elevated you to a past entry level. So, so we associate it with a lot of things.
Let's anybody here a fan of the show The Office? Raise your hand in the comments if you're a fan of the show of The Office, because Michael Scott, that guy doesn't have the skills. He's not a leader, right? And that's part of his character on the show, and why the show is funny, because he has no leadership skills. He wants to be liked by the people. He doesn't want to lead the people. He doesn't want to inspire the people. He wants to be liked by the people. And so I just thought of this as an example, because he, in that show, this isn't really a spoiler alert, he was a really good salesman, like the best salesman in the branch. And because he was the best salesman in the branch, they made him the regional manager.
Oh, wow. That makes no sense.
Well, and this happens so often. I've seen it happen. I work in a marketing organization, and there was a lady who worked as a creative, like a designer, graphic designer, for years and years and years. And when the creative director left, she got promoted to creative director.
Okay.
She didn't want to direct the people. She wanted to just be a graphic designer. And it was always annoying to me, because I'm like, well, she'd been here for 20 years. How come she can't make more money by being this senior graphic designer, right? She has to, they've created this structure where you have to move up. Otherwise, you're never going to make more money. And then you move up into leadership positions, which are then given to people based on how good of a skill they have that's not relevant to leading. And then we wonder why we have problems in leadership, right? Right. But yeah, let's see what Gina is saying.
This is how she said, I overcame it with podcasts and my mentor. Great functionalities. I will always ask people in their position before me for advice, which is always a plus. Not always a plus. I take that back. There's some pluses and minuses.
Depends who the person was.
Depends on the person is in that position. I don't want to put a disclaimer in there for you. After that, with my team, I listened and took time to get to know each of them. I know everyone has different personalities, so I work with each one of them different, which is awesome. They're such a strong team of recruiters, so it's very important to understand that they all are successful for different reasons and have different work ethic. I'm not here to be their boss. I'm here to help them grow. And this past, hold your thought on that. She have some more coming up? Okay, Jenny, you have some more in there. You have some more in there, put it in there.
And this is a great example, you guys. So again, we talk a lot about on this show how being authentic is relevant specifically to you, right? Mm-hmm. Gina gave a whole bunch of really great.
Actually, I would like to work for Gina. I mean,
Gina sounds like a great boss.
Yeah, you sound like a great boss. You get to know me. You know what I mean? Sounds like you put me in a place to be successful. Finding out those things about me, you already have the understanding that we're all in this team because we are important. Successful on different reasons. Oh my God, he sounds like he just wrote that out of an authentic leadership manual. So that sounds like some great stuff.
Well, and this is the thing, right? This is one of the things I love about this. Oh, the rest came up at the bottom.
Thanks, Jane. I know you wrote a lot. Thank you. I appreciate it. And this past Thursday, one of them actually texted me, thanking me for listening and motivating instead of micromanaging every day. That is a key. And how did that feel?
Right? How did you feel when you got that feedback, Gina? These are some of the things. So what I want to point out here, guys, is Gina gave us a lot of great things that you can try. And one of the things too, remember, these are things to
Gina,
do.
And that wasn't on the dark side either. I just wanted to.
No, that wasn't very dark side.
Not on the dark side at all.
I mean, pretty light side. That's kind of Jedi-ish.
It's like Return of the Jedi there. That wasn't the dark side.
Yeah.
But we'll take it. We'll take
Which is good. We support that. But here's something that can happen if you guys just take that and do the things without figuring out how you would do them in a way that feels real and authentic for you. That is a path to the dark side.
Yes, that's a path to the dark side. But
Yeah.
Gina kept us
So
on the light side,
learn.
and I appreciate that, Gina.
And this is the point of the show too, right? You guys like learn. You can learn what I've done, learn what Carl Shawn has done, learn what Gina and other amazing leaders have done through the comments, right? Learn from those things and make sure you incorporate those things in ways that feel good for you. If they feel fake to you, it won't come off as authentic. So even though you might be doing the same thing, right? Like, oh, okay, Gina says I should have meetings with everybody one-on-one and learn about them. But if you're not really interested in learning about them, how much are you going to learn from the one-on-one meetings, right? It's kind of, you gotta care about the things. You got to have that motive. You got to have that intention.
Charlene says something here that we normally don't. We normally talk about because we are talking about the dark side of that, and this is something that I don't know if I don't know if I've ever dealt with that on a personal level, but what I can say that they have directed this kind of action, and I think it was directed more so in clicks and you not being inclusive, so more than actually removing the personal connections. And I think that a lot of people that worked on positions and those of leaderships had their favorites, quote unquote. They will become a cliquish society based upon the culture that was there, right? So if you got certain ones, they want to remove the personal thing because if I'm the manager and I like you, yeah, we definitely got a personal connection. But I don't like Tracy because Tracy come in with the authentic stuff all the time. So let's not talk to her. What do you think about that? Some noise. Is there agreements with Charlene on that? Do they really
Well,
want to
I
move
agree
the
with
personal
Tanya, who said people interested in this topic might not enjoy working for such organizations. Fact.
Fact.
Right?
I appreciate
And
that. Right?
yes, this might be true, but I think this is my interpretation is that COVID has flipped that. So I think that a lot. I think that in certain work environments before, there was a drive to try and remove some of those personal connections to like take away the water coolers, not the water, but the water cooler talk and things like that.
Take away the waters too, because you can't have cups and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's a COVID thing. Bring your own water bottles, people. That's how we do it nowadays. But there's so much in the last 2 years that people have realized is tied to connection, and whether those connections are happening at work, which we're hoping conversations like this will have a positive impact on that. But the whole point is that we're humans, we're social creatures. You can't remove personal connections from the scenario. All the TV shows today. Anybody here watch Bones? So it's one of my favorite shows ever. And at the very beginning, like first season, she had like no personal connections to anybody. And she just was her own self and she did her own thing. But she also had no love, no support,
no friends. Anything. I remember that was with the guy, right?
She had one friend, and I'm still to this day not sure how she had that one friend. But anyway, you know those people, right? You're like, you have friends, really? Because you seem like kind of a hard nut to crack. These are like, and there are individual people too. We talk about this from the leadership perspective as well, right? Like you might get an employee like that because they came from one of these organizations that Charlene is talking about who frowned upon personal connections. And now let's imagine someone came from that scenario and now they work on Gina's team. And all of a sudden, Gina's doing like all these things to try and create this environment of personal connections. They might have fear associated with that because they have been taught to be afraid of personal connections. And so these are, I like to call it corporate trauma. And so we don't know. As leaders, we don't always know what these relationships are with people. But it's important for us to give them that space. It's to be them, right? And if your intention is to be an authentic leader, that also includes creating a space where people can intentionally be their authentic selves, and knowing that, just like my 3-year-old, I can't control what that person does, right? If they don't want to show up and tell me things and reveal their emotions, I can't control them. I can't make them do it. And I can create a space for them that allows them to feel safe within whatever realm they're capable of feeling safe right now.
You said something I want to tap on before we go a little farther, and it was something that I really noticed. Well, I noticed it over the weekend, and I really thought it was telling of the times. And you talked about the visual of how things are and how pandemic has pushed things away. So you mentioned about the Great Resignation. I know a few people that really actually started that before it got a title, because a lot of people have been fed up before the pandemic, and I think the pandemic was the crux that kind of pushed
Hashtag
people.
working moms.
Yeah, kind of like pushed them to the edge. But I knew quite a few people that already had been going that direction of not necessarily have actually made the resignation, but they really mentally checked out and were looking for ways to physically check out. And I think what you said about the pandemic was key. But I saw a commercial this weekend, and I really thought that it was poignant of what the times are right now. The commercial was a LinkedIn commercial, and the LinkedIn commercial show people of all colors, creeds, avenues, tattoos, situation, earrings in the nose. They just put like it showed like snippets. It was sort of like an Instagram reel, really. It just showed like snippets of so many variations of people in their creative ways and how they are and their authentic selves and whatever. And I think like the diatribe of them really was just saying that. The gist of what I got out of it was like this is not your father's LinkedIn, where the E and the resume was a thing and what they were trying to say. And I was thinking I really applauded LinkedIn for doing that once I really saw it. If you don't get a chance to see it, check it out. You probably could Google it and see it. And they just show so many aspects of what work is now and how they're giving so much attention to all of those aspects. Because before, when you go in certain areas or certain corporate, there was just this physical of what you saw, and you compared that to corporate. Well, that singular of mind and that singular of thinking is no longer the case. Now, corporate in the ownership and the business and the entrepreneur world, they're all looking all kind of different ways, shapes, and colors. So you can't stop me from having my braids or my twisties or earring in my nose or tattoos, because that used to be a corporate no. You know what I mean? Tattoos showing. Now, I had a couple of people that we had to let go of my place of employment because they had it on the neck and it was too high. Now that was quite a few years ago, but this was how it is. But I really thought that was, I don't know, noble to them. I won't say push them because of the pandemic and what it's brought about. I will say. So the culture and the things that's being pushed are being changed, and this ain't your daddy's jobs and workforce no more, right? We got the upper hand now. What you think?
Sorry, specifically about LinkedIn. I was looking at all of the comments.
Ah,
But
hey,
no, this is the thing, right? Like this is so examples like that are promoting the concept of authenticity, which is awesome.
wow, they really being
And
authentic.
yes, and this is still to some degree, I think we talked about this last time or maybe 2 episodes ago.
Probably 3 or 4 episodes ago.
Probably all the episodes. I feel like we're a great big echo chamber and we talk about the same things all the time. Because we're talking about authentic leadership, but it's about we have to step up to the plate, right? Like we have to step up to the plate and be authentic. And I think it was, I can't remember who, but there was a post I saw probably about a week or 2 weeks ago, and it was talking about, it was Niti Nataraja. If you guys don't follow her, she is awesome. She was talking about, she was on a podcast. She was talking about how it's hard to be the only voice of a specific kind in a room. So specifically women of color, she was speaking from her perspective. And I was just like, it really is so hard to do that. And we have to, right? We have to. The types of people like you guys who are listening today, the types of people who we are connected with, the types of people who watch the show in general, we are the people. We are the people that have to step up and change the narrative, right? That commercial, an invitation from LinkedIn to say, this is what this can be. And if we don't use our voices to actually create that, LinkedIn can't create that, right? We have to create that. The users of the platform have to create it. We have to create, I don't know if you guys follow Madison Butler, but she had a post again today, and she always shares these posts. She gets ridiculous comments from people. Who are these people? I don't know, but they just they say the worst things to her, and she always does a post about it and tells
She's
their
she's a
employer.
shock jock of posting, so it brings
She is, but at the same time, her intention is to make change, right? To have these voices be heard. And I am all about it, man. So I still can't believe when the old white man, let's put it out there, just wants it. Why?
Trying to keep her brother down, man.
I mean, at least she has content for the rest of her life, but come on, people. I'm looking at the profile of the people listening to the show right now, right? We have the unique capability because we care and because we want to, and because we can create an intention out of that. Absolutely. To create change in the space, right? LinkedIn with that commercial, I got to look at it because I haven't actually seen it. They're inviting us. They're inviting us to do that. And I want to just talk about this too for a minute, because there are a lot of corporate structures, and Doreen was talking about it, and Tanya was talking about it, and I'm way behind in the chat because you guys just have too many awesome things happening in the chat today.
I'm gonna go back and just check this out, on this series.
Yeah, cool. But these are there's more space available than we think we have. Right? Creating a space where people can be their authentic self. It sounds like common sense, yet so hard to see being implemented in corporates. And this is the other thing. Yes, historically, in the way corporate has run, it's hard to see that being implemented. And if you had, let's start small. Let's start with some small organizations that have a management team of maybe 10, 14 people, right? What if all of those people cared about creating an authentic space?
Wow.
The actions they take are different, right? And even me, I think about this, let's talk about failures, right? And I didn't have the knowledge at the time to be able to do this, so I don't look at it as a failure myself. But we really need, this is a learning opportunity, is that when I worked in corporate, I had no idea what it meant to be authentic. I didn't know who the real Tracy was. I hadn't explored what I stand for. The only thing I knew is when my company wanted me to do something, I was against. And I always had the gall to just be no. I've used this, I've shared this with a couple of people too. At one point, the company I was working for was a marketing company and wanted to target casinos. And I don't have a problem with people gambling. I do have a problem with advertising gambling because I think it's addictive. And so I was if you guys want to go for that contract, that's fine. I can't run it. I cannot be the account manager. I can't. I don't believe in it. I won't give it the amount of care.
The energy that it inspires.
Right? They ended up not going for it.
Power to the people.
The number one thing, and one of the straws that broke the camel's back and why I ended up leaving corporate was when George Floyd was murdered. And my company, which was full of white people, wanted to get on the Black Lives Matter train in social media. And I was I can't. Our company doesn't believe in that. Right. And I can't pretend that we do publicly just to jump on a train. That's not, we should just shut up and we should let the voices that need to be heard. And we're not one of those. Right. And I didn't. And I said to my boss, and she didn't know how to post on social media. So it was fine. I knew it wasn't going to happen. But you can, if you want to, you can do that. It's your company. Right. But I won't post that. This is my recommendation, that we say we're going to be silent for a week, and these are the types of people you should listen to. for a week. That's what you should do.
And Tanya said something that's really that I'm glad you went to that and went that direction on here because Tanya said something that is very, and I get this a lot, living your values. You have to get to a place of that. You made a bold, what some probably would consider as workplace suicide, right? Put yourself out there, and this is where peer pressure, colleague pressure, whatever pressure you want to. This is what the majority of the workforce goes through on a day in day out basis. The inability to stand on that, and it's contagious, right? So with you affirming your values, and I'm going somewhere with this to show you the power of standing in who you are. When you are affirming the values that you took and the stance that you took on there was an unsaid or unspokenness of them not accepting that, right? And I think what they really rolled to and what that raises to the exception is that there is power if you stand in now. It may not all come to this kind of circumstance, and you have to be willing for the sacrifice, right? But I think this is where it has come so conducive for us to go along and get along. A lot of people are not willing to make that sacrifice. So they're put up for, which would be the lesser of the two evils of me just feeling crappy at this non-cultural place that I continue to work at 40 plus hours a week, but I have to do that because I can't stand up in what I want to.
I want to talk about this because what I'm trying to demonstrate to you guys is that I did that. I did that twice in my corporate career, not very many times. I did it twice, and I didn't get fired either time. I ended up quitting because I realized how misaligned I was with the company I worked for. That's a different thing. I didn't get fired because I stood up for my values.
No, that's what I'm saying. But see, that's the I wouldn't even say misconception. That's the fear that's presented by the culture.
Yes.
So even though that's why I said unspoken, because it's not that, and I mean legally stating what can be the values of them firing you. That's something that has to be, brought about and presented. But you standing up in the values that you believe in, oftentimes when you look upon, and I oftentimes go back to this, the vision and the mission statement that's on the walls or in the handbook or all of those things that they have you before you begin the position. Those things are probably in there, but the culture has been so contaminated with those that work there and how they carry on this commitment to silence. This is what I call it. It's a commitment to silence, because if you're silencing voices that wants to make change, it's got to be a commitment. And a lot of people are commitment to this by your inability to speak is also a commitment, because you're not saying anything about what's wrong that's happening. So again, I think it all goes back to who's prepared to make that stance. Are you willing to make that stance? Are you willing to suffer the consequences to that stance?
And yes, can you pull up what Gina just said?
Yeah.
If I did get fired, I would still feel amazing because I got fired for doing something I believe in. And that is a good reason.
And I've had somebody tell me, okay, that's fine. And how will I pay the mortgage next week?
Okay. I think I talked about this the last episode, because Jasmine Escalera, again, if you guys don't follow her, I recommend you follow her. Absolutely. She left a toxic work environment because it was so toxic, and she worked as an Uber driver for 3 months or something to pay her bills because she needed money to pay her bills, but she wasn't going to take a job to just go back and work in another toxic working environment. Right. Plus, when you drive Uber, your work environment is your own car.
And if it's toxic in your car, you should maybe pick up another environment.
At least you can fix it. Right. It's anyway. And you're right. So Gina is right. If I got fired, I would have gotten fired for something I believe in. And like even I said, once I experienced that, it was no go for me. I had checked out. I was like, you guys want me to do that? And that is like so far away from what I believe. How can I keep working here? Right. Like I immediately started looking at ways out. Like now I'm done. How do I get out of here?
The great resignation.
And that's the thing, right? Like people believe in things. People have values. Right? Like, and maybe you don't have as much practice as you'd like standing in your values, but I will tell you this. And I think Tara's experienced this as well in some of the stories she shared with me historically. When someone pushes so hard against your values that you have to stand up, you will. I believe in all of you. I believe if it is something you care enough about and someone pushes so hard against it, you will get to the point where you will be like, no. Because let's be honest, right? Like we've all done things we don't want to do, right? When we're working for someone else, you think I should do this. I think that's dumb, but sure, I'll write a blog post on whatever because I don't care that much, right? Like I don't care. But when you want me to do something that is that misaligned with who I am as a person, I can't do it. I won't do it. And so I believe in all of you guys. I believe that you've experienced that, maybe not in a work environment, right? Like, and Tanya was saying that she has a similar story. She wasn't fired, right? She took the initiative to realize it was not where she wanted to work. And these are chances for us, right? But it's also chances for our work environment to say like
And for growth and development as well. I think a lot of times we put the onus so much on being able to pay a bill that we really don't put the priority over the well being. Because I've had people that I've talked to that have been in these kind of positions and predicaments, and though they were making financially substantial money, or even in positions that they had always dreamed of being in, the culture of where they worked at took all the joy out of all the other things that they were trying to fulfill in their lives. So it was an actual battle of which do I decide? And then in the course of that, in that, they had come so much a prisoner to the culture that they wasn't developing, they wasn't growing, and they wasn't innovative, and they wasn't productive. So a lot of the things that which you strive to be once you get into these places, you often lose when the culture saps it from you. So I like the point of what Tanya says. And she took the initiative to realize, because a lot of people don't take that initiative. A lot of people sit in careers 20, 30 years, and they just as miserable. And every day that they get up on Monday, they waiting for Friday.
mhm.
Who would want to work in that kind of environment? And I if I get up on Monday and saying I can't wait
So
till the
many
weekend,
people, right? What's
it's
the
bad.
Gallup survey is still at something ridiculous about like 78% of
It's
employees
ridiculous.
are either hate their job or disengaged from
Yeah,
their work. That's 78% of people do that every day, right? And here's
religiously.
the thing, because this ties into exactly what Tanya is saying too. When we're that in tune with our emotions and we can stand up for them, that these are in the scenarios where someone has pushed so hard against them. The problem is that most of us don't have that much push, right? Like that was enough push for me to be like, I'm out. I can't work here anymore. This is what you guys believe. I just can't, right? But most people go to work every day and it's mostly fine, right? Like they do work, they get a high five here and there. They like sit in meetings,
Good
sit in
job.
meetings and talk about the same thing over and over, even though that's kind of what we're doing, but we're learning at the same time. Just
Yes.
talking about the same thing, and you're like, I just do this every day. I wrote a post about, I think I put it in the job collection, Job Connection Tuesday collective group. But about how there's so many people who are using language like I'm mailing it in, I'm just showing up, right? Like going through the motions,
Oh
right?
wow.
And people think that is
Okay.
fine. They think that's what work is, right? And so they just go and they do that, and they forget that they have things that they care about, and their work is not related to things they care about, but it's also not related to things that they don't care about. So it's just kind of meh,
It's kind of
right?
yeah. It's
Kind
kind
of
of
meh. And so like it's kind of easier. It's kind of easier for people like us, Tanya, when we're like, oh, ooh, just like it's not even like 3 strikes you're out. You're like, that is just one big strike. You are out, right? Like I can't deal with it. Whereas like people just get these like tiny strikes every day. I'm pretty sure pretty soon they've worked for an organization for 15, 20, 30, 40 years.
yeah.
And they're
I've
just like,
talked to a lot of
meh.
them, and these are not, and the ones that I've talked to are not entry level, and they're the collective of the ones that I've spoken to have been
Mhm.
of management for quite a period of time,
Yeah.
and they sort of get the thought processes of okay, I'm kind of stuck. Where can I go? I've even had one tell me that, well, I'm kind of older now, so what move would I make? Uh, I said, well, look at me. I'm older now, and I've been like where I was at. So, I mean, but
Oh, you
when you
guys,
look,
my last client was 62.
oh,
And
go
he was like,
60s, go 60s.
I'm probably gonna retire when I'm like 65, but I want to, like, he had been made redundant in a murder or whatever. And he's like, I still want to do work. I still have something to contribute, but I don't want to do it to those standards anymore. Like Kanye said, our collective workspace standards are too low.
He's an ambassador, and he
Yes.
was what a corporation which should be should hold on to, should I won't say exploit, but should use
And you know, the
their
problem is
advantage.
probably the like departments merged and he made more money than the other guy. So they just let him go because they're trying to save money, right? Business decision. But
Hmm.
the thing that I appreciate and like, I was working with him and being able to see the value that you provide and that isn't a black mark or whatever on your resume, but remembering those things again, remembering those types of things that you're gonna have a hard day as a leader at some point, Gina. And I would love you to like you can copy and paste this post that you wrote, get that text message that your employee sent to you, keep that because you're going to have a hard day and you're going to be like, ugh, I'm the worst leader, I wasn't authentic at all today. And it's okay. It's okay for you to get caught up. It's okay
Yeah,
for
it's
you to
okay.
be like, this is another thing when we experience new things, right? Sometimes we don't know how to navigate that, and so we
This
don't actually know how to be authentic in that scenario, and we have to try things, and some of the things you try will not feel good, they will not feel authentic. Then we chalk that up to the dark side of authentic
the
leadership
dark
and say,
side.
well, that was me trying
Trace, you froze, or did I freeze? All right, then. I guess we did freeze. So Trace froze in mid point there. Uh, Tanya, thank you. When business decisions involve worsening people's lives, the decisions do need to be revisited. I do agree with that because the important time where they start to wear on actually perform, how people actually perform, then there lies the business decisions that's worsening people's lives. And when you look at that to the point of that, they need to be revisited. They need to be put in a place or a different perspective of understanding that Uh, thanks a lot, Shawn. And yes, Jersey was okay this time. I don't know what happened to Tracy. I think she froze. I think she froze, but New Jersey was all right this time. She did freeze, but we'll get Tracy back. If not, we'll see Tracy next week. But we thank everybody that has came out. I thank you so much for participating. Oh, Tracy tried to make her way back in there. Yes,
Yeah.
Tracy,
My
you did.
internet just is gone.
You froze. You
Sorry,
froze.
guys.
You froze, and everybody told me you froze. They made a whole lot of things. You froze, so you are truly right now. You are Elsa, so you are frozen. Okay, so
Let it
so
go, guys. Let it go.
let it go. So
Oh,
this is what it. This is what it is. This is what technology does. Yes, I oftentimes get blamed for the freezes, but it was not Jersey this time. It was old Canada. So thank you, Annette, for joining in and chiming in. She said authenticity requires the freedom to experiment with our ideals. We're usually just getting to know ourselves for the first time, even in our 60s sometimes. I appreciate that. So you letting me know that I have a few more years and I'll be able to rationale with my 60s of what I really don't know about myself. And I like that. I like that. And Gina says, I will print out reminders for myself to get through some of the tough days. I see my picture in my dining room about mindset every day. That is wonderful. That is wonderful. The mindset thing. And so I say, you are so right in that. This seems to come with age. Yes, it does. You are what is that they say about wine? It gets finer with age or something. I'm not a wine drinker, so I don't know, but I've heard it said a few times, and I do think that's the case. There becomes some understanding, and it becomes a place of thinking of where you okay for what's going on. I think when you climbing that corporate ladder, you're younger, and it's just this boisterousness of I gotta make a path, or I gotta make a way, or I gotta make my name, or I gotta make my bones, whatever you think about it. And you have all of these things in mind, so you're pushing yourself up the ladder and you're passing those on the side. And I think you get to a comfortable state of at an age point, and definitely, that you come to a place where it's okay. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. So Trace, I'm so glad you're back. You're so authentically yourself. You want to carry us home?
Oh, I just want to. Sorry about my internet, guys. It is what it is. Tech difficulties. I just want to remind you guys that you will have failures on your path to authentic leadership. Remember the wins, celebrate the wins, learn something from the failures. There's no such thing as a person who's 100% authentic all the time in whatever part of their life. It's not a thing. So let that go, because apparently I'm Elsa, so we can just let all the things go.
Let it go.
Just let it go and learn as you go. Have that intention of being authentic. Keep it there. Keep it in the back of your mind. Measure yourself against that and move forward. That's it. And if you guys want to get into more of these conversations, not just in the chat, but in actual conversation in a more coachy capacity, we, Carl, Shawn, and I, and also Tara Argo, are jumping right after this to the Authentic Leadership Mastermind, which is part of the Impact membership within your business peeps. So if this is a conversation that you feel like you need right now to get your authentic leadership mojo in motion, let any of us know, and we will give you an opportunity to sneak peek the mastermind before you make a decision. It happens every Monday right after this session. So if you like this one, you're going to like the other one even more.
Yes, you will, and we appreciate everybody who's came out. We love you guys. Thanks, Jenny, for hopping in there at the last time. Gina, we thank you so much for participating in everything. You as well, Tanya. To everybody, Charlene, we appreciate you guys coming by, because we can't do this authentic leadership if we don't have nobody to talk authentic leadership with. But please join us every Monday here at 5 p.m. unless I tell you otherwise, but Tracy as well. And then we want you to hop over and get in the peeps, so you can continue this conversation going. It's a good deal. It's a good thing. We'll put the link in the comments, so we'll also check out on the hashtag replay. You'll be able to see it. You'll be able to join in on the fun and come and join us. We thank you again, and we'll see everybody next week. So you guys stay kind to each other. I got that from Ellen. I thought that was pretty cute. Stay kind to each other. See you guys next week.